Can you use a higher and more advanced inflatable kayak for sea kayaking? Well, if you've followed this channel for a while, then you obviously know that I've done exactly that for a number of years, and that's actually what you'll be seeing in this video as well. So obviously, yes, you can, but there are some caveats. There are some limitations, and especially if you're starting out, or if you're an intermediate paddler and you're maybe used to more sheltered waters and you're thinking about heading out on seawater, there are some really important safety considerations that you need to make and information you need to have. So in this video, I'm not going to try to prove that you can go sea kayaking, or for that matter paddle with sea kayaks with a more advanced inflatable kayak, because as mentioned, I've done that tons of times, both by myself, in smaller groups, and in very large groups. So I know that it is possible, and I know what a kayak like this can do, but I'm also mindful of the limitations, and that might actually be harder to know if you are just starting out with your inflatable kayak journey, or as I mentioned, you might be an intermediate paddler and considering heading out on more advanced waters. So in this video, that's the goal, discussing how sea kayaking might work with a more advanced inflatable kayak. And this also applies to some folding kayaks that might not be up to the full capacity of a sea kayak. There are varieties both within inflatable kayaks and sea kayaks, and different capabilities of each kayak model, obviously. So starting from the more basic inflatables that you might not want to take out into rough conditions at all, or probably shouldn't unless you're very experienced and know exactly what you're doing. More advanced inflatable kayaks, like a quality drop stitch kayak, like this one, the Itiwit X500 Strenfit from decathlon, for example, which is the one I'll use as an example because it's the one I've used the most at sea, and used the most overall, actually. But you obviously have other models. I also use the Air Fusion Evo kayak from Advanced Elements. There are other kayaks as well that are inflatable that may not necessarily be drop stitch or part drop stitch, like the Advanced Elements Advanced Frame Expedition, for example. There are more models, and you have other kayaks that are folding models, like Oru kayaks, or different models. I'm not mentioning the more advanced folding kayaks because they often are quite similar in many ways to sea kayaks. But anyway, you do need to be mindful if you're going to head out in seawater. I've done it a ton of times, but that also means that I paddle a lot. I don't paddle as much as many people I know. My kayaking trips per year might be about 50 to 65, but it's enough to have enough experience and awareness of what I can do, my own capacity, and what my kayak can do and what it can do. So, first of all, a quick note on the speed. I've recorded a different video on this, so if you're interested in how it actually works to paddle together with sea kayaks, I would refer you to the video that I'll link to at the end of this one. But basically, at regular paddling speed, which for most sea kayakers actually isn't more than 5 kilometers per hour or so, the Itiwit X500, for example, or this kind of drop stitch kayak, can easily keep up. So that's not an issue. You can go up to 6, 6.5, and you can still keep up. You'll work a little bit more than those in a nice, long, better formed sea kayak, but it will still work. But should you go out on seawater in the first place? Well, you need to be aware of a number of things, and if you're starting out, or if you haven't been in these conditions before, there are things that you absolutely need to take into account. And maybe if you're more advanced, you still need to be reminded of them, or remind yourself of them. The first is of course the conditions, the weather, always checking the weather forecast, and being mindful of things like winds pushing you away potentially from shore. Offshore winds can be really difficult for paddlers in inflatable kayaks to handle. In a kayak like this, it's much easier and normally not a major issue, but that depends. If you're paddling 3 to 4 times a year, it's a big difference compared to if you're paddling 50 times a year. And your kayaking technique and your awareness of how to handle different waves and wind and conditions and tides, if that's an issue where you paddle, this is something that you really need to be aware of. And if you're not absolutely sure about what you're doing, it's better to go with company always. You'll be safer, you'll be able to call for help or assist each other if something happens, and basically you need to bring the proper safety gear along, like a bilge pump and a paddle float to help you get into the kayak if you capsize, and to empty the kayak. Of course, a spray skirt to keep the water out, and a spare paddle if you're going for a longer trip, and spare clothes always in a waterproof bag, like a dry bag, in your kayak. So those are the basics, but you need to be able to call for help. So have you considered what where to happen if you were to capsize? Do you have your phone in a waterproof pouch? Well, you should, and it should be attached to your PFD, which you should obviously always wearing. You should be wearing cold water safety gear, which is a wetsuit or a dry suit if you're paddling in cold water. And if you're paddling in more advanced conditions, you might need a marine VHF radio or a PLB, a personal locator beacon, because your phone might not have coverage enough or work well enough for you actually to call for help. So where you paddle and what conditions and what weather you paddle in, it makes all of the difference for the choices that you make. You need to stay safe. You need to not go out in conditions that are above your capacity. But this kind of kayak actually can handle quite a lot that most sea kayakers at intermediate level would consider acceptable. So, if you're interested in this, and if you'd like to learn more about this topic and have more specific tips, first of all, check out the paddling safety and the Itiwit X500 Strenfit playlist on my channel, or the sea kayaking playlist on my channel. Then leave a comment with the thoughts that you are most concerned with, the risks or how things work, what your limits might be, where you should and should not paddle. Leave that in the comments, and if there's enough interest for this issue, I will be making a more extensive video with more specific information, both on how this kind of kayak works, with an analysis of how it has worked for me on seawater, and more specific safety tips. So it's up to you. In all cases, stay safe out there. Don't go out into waters that you can't handle. Make sure to have practiced recovery, meaning rescue techniques, getting back into your kayak alone or assisted by others, preferably both. And well, have fun out there, be safe, and happy paddles. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe in order to help others find the information on this channel. Stay safe out there and happy paddles.